The Behemoth is a terrifyingly large monster that hails from Eorzea. Its ability to summon magic and take command of the battlefield makes it a very difficult foe. You'll need to use teamwork and a bit of strategy to overcome this beast. Behemoth is weakest to dragon, followed by water and ice. According to the in-game guide, he has weak spots on his tail and head, but you should also know that his front claws are slight weak spots as well. He's quite susceptible to all status ailments as well, so take advantage of that. You can cut off his tail, break his claws, and break both horns, but be careful. If you start attacking his head, he's going to start coming for you. Depending on the role you wish to play when fighting Behemoth, you can really choose any weapon against him. If you're looking to focus on just DPS, pick a weapon you're comfortable with. If you're going to be leading a support role, pick up Sword and Shield for quick heals, or a weapon with a fast sheath time. If you're looking to tank aggro, I recommend Lance, Gun Lance, or a ranged weapon. Behemoth will one-shot you with his Ecliptic Meteor strike no matter what. Guts won't even help here. One of the ways to avoid this is to hide behind comets that he's called down. I found that having evade distance to get over to these faster was a huge help. Wide range will keep your party alive, and skills like recovery up and health boost pair nicely with the damage he can do. If your set has some spare slots, consider adding in bleed negate or other advantageous skills like quick eating or speed sharpening. If you're going to tank his enmity, definitely add guard up via the decoration or charm, and Mind's Eye goes a long way even if you have white sharpness, as you'll still bounce in places. Tremor resistance is a huge benefit, and stun resistance will ensure you don't get trapped in a KO state when his meteor is coming down. I didn't find earplug to be that necessary, and elemental resistances are helpful if you have really low resistance in thunder or fire, but not required. You'll want a host of healing items, including the ability to make more items such as max potions or life powders if you don't have wide range. Bring tons of flash bugs to keep him from doing his Charybdis tornado attack, and don't forget mega barrel bombs if someone is bringing sleep status. Farcasters are useful as a last minute bailout, but some of his homing attacks will ignore you being at camp and still target you. Also, bring a Jerk in case you get the bleed ailment, and null berries for Thunderblight. Bring the temporal mantle for sure, and the rocksteady mantle is useful as well as the evasion mantle. The challenger mantle is useless here due to his enmity system, so if you can't decide, then try bringing the health booster. The vitality mantle will only save you from about one attack, so it's not quite worth the trade-off. If you haven't used the radial wheels yet, now is the time to start. Set one of your items to the new jump emote. It may just save your life. Much like the Final Fantasy MMO that Behemoth comes from, it's best to tackle him with a coordinated cooperation by using designated roles. This is of course best utilized in a system that preferably your group decides on, but here's an example that provides good balance. It won't win you any fastest time records, but it will help organize and prepare you for a successful hunt. The primary role is of course the enmity tank. This person will be responsible for attacking the Behemoth's head and drawing its focus on themselves whenever possible. By utilizing weapons with a shield, they will be able to keep their health up and draw further aggro so the teammates can deal out damage. You can also use their ranged weapon and dance around his attacks. Ranged weapons have the benefit of being able to attack his head much more frequently. That being said, if you are meleeing, just use slinger ammo to draw his focus, but you will need quite a bit of it. Once Behemoth targets you, he will turn red and a line will be drawn to you designating you as the primary target. During this time, he will focus on you and many of his attacks will be solely to kill you, meaning everyone else will have a much easier time fighting him. Then you should have two DPS roles, using whichever weapons they find most suitable. Stick to the front claws and his tail for damage and a cut. Health augmented weapons will be beneficial here and also wide range to aid the rest of your team when you happen to take damage. Otherwise, stack for damage boosting skills and a few defensive ones like tremor resistance and stun negate. Finally, you should think about including a libero of sorts, someone who can inflict status, keep the tank healed, and rush in to deal damage or mount when necessary. Gunners will be able to use all kinds of status ailments, as well as have a good visual on the field and what's going on to communicate with their teammates. Sword and shield users will be able to use all items quickly, as well as rush in for mount attacks to give the others a break. Duels are good at this because they can dash in and out of combat as well as put their weapons away quickly. If you do go melee, try bringing one with a status ailment on it, particularly Paralyze, as Behemoth can get parried many times. This team member should also not worry about dealing much DPS and focus more on helping others. They should always have flashes stocked to throw at Behemoth when he charges up Charybdis, and be ready to call out attacks. The most important thing you can do is communicate. Always tell your teammates when Charybdis is being cast, and tell them where the comets fall, if they need healing, etc. Having a mic for this quest is invaluable. Behemoth surprisingly doesn't have many attacks, but each one can put you in a pretty scary situation, so it's best to know what's going to happen and how you can recover. First things first, Behemoth is massive. The range for all his physical attacks is incredibly large, so pay close attention to your distance. Also, the splash damage of all his magic is larger than you think. Best to roll an extra time than get hit. Behemoth has common swipes with his right paw, as well as a general tail swipe. The paw attack is often too fast to predict, but the tail swipe you can see him charge it up. When it's not cut, it's a threat of knocking you back, but as soon as it's off, it really isn't much of an issue. He'll lunge really far across an area, so try not to get too far away when healing, or at least keep an eye on him. One of Behemoth's favorite attacks is a 360 spin. He will crouch down and brace a slightly wider stance while his tail moves to his right and flicks a few times. Then he will spin 360 degrees, sending everyone around flying. There's a small safe spot underneath his chest, but I wouldn't rely on this as the environment can mess with it. The best thing you can do with this attack is roll away and cut off his tail early. His tail adds a lot of range to the attack, and once it's off, it's much easier to stay clear of. Behemoth will do a shoulder charge similar to Nergigante's. He will back up and rear shoulder a bit before slamming it down and sidestepping quickly towards you. He doesn't stop at any set range, so if you see him do this, roll towards his head or tail to get out of the way. He will stand on his hind legs and perform a large body slam that also causes tremor. This is relatively quick and can also pin you, so be careful. Dodge to the sides and not underneath him. He's too large to get past in most cases. When Behemoth shakes and snarls and then lifts his head, he's about to rush towards you with a digging horn attack. This also has no set range, so even if you think you're far enough away, you're still not safe. It's fast, so roll away as soon as you see him snarl. This can also cause bleeding, and even worse, it can also pin you and then he will smash you into the ground a few times. If this happens to you, you will instantly gain his enmity and he will focus on you. Behemoth also has the ability to cast magic. Luckily, every time he casts a spell, it is displayed in the right of the screen, so pay extra attention to this area when hunting him. His favorite spell is Charybdis, a spell that will form a tornado over a single hunter. The spell takes a long time to charge up, and during this time, call out if you're being targeted, indicated by the gusts forming around your character. You can use a flash pod to halt him from casting this, and you definitely should. Otherwise, tornadoes will start plaguing the area you're fighting in. Rocksteady mantles won't help here. These tornadoes deal decent damage to you and will send you flying regardless. If your team can't get a flash off in time, be sure to get far away from the main fight. A tornado will drop and stay in a spot for a long time, so as soon as you start getting targeted, if you can, try to run to the side of an area or down a path to another area. You know he is casting this when his head drops down and a dark blue aura forms around it. Also, it's worth knowing that hitting him with a flash pod will reset his enmity, but this far outweighs the cost of having a bunch of long-lasting tornadoes lying around. He also loves to cast Meteor, which will send down anywhere from 1 to 3 meteors on random teammates. During this, he will raise his head high into the air and his head will glow blue. The ground around you will glow red, and that's your cue to move. The range on meteors is surprisingly large, and they deal great damage as well as fire blight. Sometimes you'll even get targeted by multiple meteors. He will cast Thunderbolt rather quickly. His horns will emanate lightning, causing a very fast shockwave in front of him that inflicts Thunder Blight. Following this, 3 waves of lightning will strike the ground, 1 right in front of him, and 2 more about 45 degrees to each side. It's fairly easy to dodge, but it does hurt and will compound on the Thunderblight, so be very careful since Thunderblight increases the chance of getting stunned. If you're in front of him, he might try to unleash a wave of energy directly in front and to the sides in a line. His head will lower and glow red. This is your indication to back away or get underneath him. This burst of energy will send you flying and leave you vulnerable. When he stands up and raises a glowing red paw, he's about to send a wave of red energy directly in front of him for some distance. This attack has much more splash damage than you would think, so roll to the sides a few times when he stands up. Luckily, you should have plenty of time. One of the key features to slaying Behemoth is when he casts Comet and calls down a giant rock from the sky. His head will glow blue, but unless it's targeting you, you don't need to worry. If you are targeted, you'll know by the ground pulsing a bright red spire. It is very important that you move away from the Behemoth at this time. The comet needs to land near the fight so that you can run to it quickly, but not so close that Behemoth can break it when fighting you. Once the flashing glows more intense, it will stop following you and drop. These comets are noted on the minimap, but it's good to know when and where they fall. Once a few comets have fallen, typically 4 in the second and third stages and only 2 in the final stage, Behemoth will call upon his Ecliptic Meteor. This is an instant kill, no matter guts, moxie, or defense. During this, almost all of your items are disabled, so don't bother trying to Farcaster out. You will need to run and hide in the shadow of a fallen comet that hopefully has not been destroyed in the fight. You don't have a ton of time, so after he starts calling down comets, watch out for the minimap to turn white again, indicating the start of the spell. It'll also be announced on the right side of the screen. The enmity tank should work on keeping Behemoth away from the comets, but still within reach of them. If you can't make it in time, prepare the jump emote on your radial wheel. When you see the comet begin to fall, that's when you activate it. The other comet, by the way. Oh, here it is, here it is.
Oh, here it is,
shit,
there it is.
Here it comes.
Oh shit, it's on it! I'm gonna run back. Get the shadow. Or jump.
I jumped. I made it.
Holy shit. Finally.
This is also the very last attack from Behemoth in the final stage. Once he calls upon Ecliptic Meteor a third time, he dies immediately after. In the first stage, try to get the large crystals to fall on Behemoth. They do 1750 damage each and 3500 damage if he's asleep, which will very quickly move him to the second stage. In the second stage, you should focus on cutting the tail. Use mounts, status ailments, and the large hill to take it off quickly. From this point on, you need to be calling out Charybdis casts. Work together if you can inflict paralyze, and manage enmity once he starts dropping comets. The third stage can go to one of two places, Nergigante's starting area or Teostris. If he goes down to the volcanic section, your fight just got a little more difficult as the area is smaller and the ground is red, much like the meteor and comet spells he casts. If he goes to where Nergigante starts normally, you can use the hills to your advantage, and the area is larger, but don't spread out the comets too much.
Dagger side.
Dagger!
Get behind the shadow of it.
Get right here, goddammit! Jesus Christ! Oh my god! In either case, he will not be casting Charybdis very often in this stage. After this stage, it is a good idea to fly to camp and stock up on flashbugs, ammo, coatings, and healing items. The fourth stage could either be where Teo sleeps or where Nergigante sleeps, depending on the previous stage. If it's where Teo sleeps, you have a slightly larger area, which is very helpful for keeping the final comets around, but the environmental damage is going to be a real pain. If he goes where Nergigante sleeps, you have to watch out for falling rocks, but the worst is that the area is more compact. In either case, manage tornadoes appropriately as well as enmity. You will only spawn 2 comets to protect yourselves in this area, so it's very important where you place them and to protect them. I highly recommend putting him to sleep after the first comet drops and then bombing him so that it moves the fight right along to the end. Know where the comets are after the second one drops and be ready to avoid one final Ecliptic Meteor. Behemoth is a very difficult fight and introduces mechanics not seen in a Monster Hunter game before. It's a lot of fun, but you need to be prepared. Don't get discouraged if he takes quite a few tries to beat. Organize your squad and stay in communication. Plan proper sleeps and paralyzes for an easier fight, and you'll whittle him down without issues. Good luck and happy hunting.